vintage sand.
Hello, hello, hello! Vintage Sand fans, all 26 of you, we're moving up in the world, geometrically, I would say. Welcome to episode, wait for it, 60. 60.
Wow.
We're nothing if not persistent little cusses, aren't
That's
we?
right.
Are you sure?
We're just going to keep coming.
I am totally
We're
sure.
We're going to keep coming.
That's right. We're the people, John, and we
That's
just
right.
keep it coming. We're Majo.
At the sound of the falling tree.
So, right, Lumberton, logs. Oh my God, I love that movie. I still love that, but we'll talk about it later. But Blue Velvet is still my favorite, including Mulholland. But that's a whole other story. So we are devoting episode 60, which I've entitled "Now It's Dark." After the line in Blue Velvet, to celebrate the work and the unique life of film's favorite Eagle Scout, and that would be David Lynch, who left us way too soon, although he hadn't made a movie in 20 years almost, since Inland.
He'd become very involved in this transcendental...
Which he's always been, but yeah, and also...
And giving weather reports.
I know, that's so perfect. It's so Lynch. Just absolutely straight, no irony, just like, here's today's weather. And
on what?
I don't know.
On his website, I think.
it was on his website. It's just so bizarre.
It's perfect. It's perfect for him. The experience that stays in my mind, because I'm a little younger than you guys are, is that unlike you guys, I didn't get to see the new Hollywood films when they were coming out. I didn't see The Godfathers or Chinatown. I barely understood Apocalypse when I was 14, but I grew up and, I came of age film-wise in the early 80s. And the early 80s, I mean, there were some good... Raiders of the Lost Ark and Back to the Future kind of films, but they all felt very corporate and not very exciting and not very personal. And then I can tell you the date because I was in grad school. It was October 16th, 1986 at the Fine Arts Theater right next to Orchestra Hall in beautiful downtown Chicago, Illinois. And I saw Blue Velvet, and I felt that my film-going life had turned around. Because I had seen Eraserhead as a midnight movie, and then I saw Elephant Man, which is a great film, but not particularly Lynchian, for lack of a better word.
I think I might disagree with you.
All right, we'll have to talk about it.
I don't think it's a great movie. Really? Eraserhead.
Oh, Eraserhead.
Oh, Eraserhead.
Not Eraser. I mean,
Elephant Man.
Really?
Yeah, I don't. I'm not crazy
it's
about
fine.
it.
The acting's good.
I think it's a good movie. I'm not crazy about it. Yeah, I think it's very well acted, beautifully acted. But I think there's so many images in it that really just don't make any sense at all.
You could say that
they're
about
not,
all,
that's
lot
all
of
of
Lynch.
Lynch.
No, but in that, it's a narrative. It's supposed to be about John Merrick, and there's so many images in there that have nothing to do with him. And he had that opening image of the elephant. It's like, what the hell is that supposed to mean? His mother mated with an elephant? It's like, what? And he has all these images about the industrial age in England that really have nothing to do with the stories.
He does love the industrial,
Well, it
doesn't
did
he?
have to do with the time it took place.
Yes. And
a lot of it. And it was a very different time than,
And all credit to Mel Brooks and Brooks Films for letting him do it in black and white.
And who kept his name off.
Yes. That's that. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the other heroes along the way. And so Blue Velvet comes out in 86, and then if you were there, if you're old enough, you remember those 2 months in the spring of 90 when Twin Peaks came on.
Oh, yeah.
And it was all anybody was talking about.
Yeah, it was a phenomenon.
Oh, my goodness. And, we had to wait all summer to see Who Killed Laura Palmer, and it turned out to be...
Especially that opening episode, the long episode.
Oh, my God. The whole thing.
Which was so beautifully done.
Talk about building a world. By the way, when we were out there, we went to the diner, to Tweedy's, where he filmed all the diner, where cherry pies go to die. Mm-hmm. So, damn good coffee.
Was it?
Hot.
Was it?
Diane? Yes, it was.
Seriously good food?
It was really, really good. So Lynch has been a hero of mine ever since that, and he
rejuvenated the interest in saddle shoes.
Well, and don't get me on about Sherilyn Fenn, because that to me was one of the sexiest moments I've ever. When she walks in to the bar with the saddle shoes and Badalamenti's music is on the jukebox, and she's like, "Ooh, I love this song," and she just dances her way in. I'm like, wow, Sherilyn Fenn. Why didn't Sherilyn Fenn become a star? She should have been.
Well, a lot of them didn't become stars.
No, I know, and.
Peaks.
Like the woman who played the dark-haired woman in Mulholland,
Laura
Lena Harding.
She works.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sherilyn
Mostly
Fenn
TV.
works too. But
I was curious about Cheryl Lee.
Cheryl Lee, who I had forgotten is is Glinda at the very end of Wild at Heart, with all its Wizard of Oz references, and Cheryl Lee comes down.
And she does work. Actually, I saw her on stage with Al Pacino in Salome.
Salome. First we'll make
Salome.
Salome, and then another picture, and then another.
Yeah, but she works. They work. I just kind of looked up several of them, but nobody from Lynch's repertoire really became stars unless they were already famous.
Almost all of his female actresses, all of them spoke very, very highly.
Oh, yeah.
Which is ironic, because that's the Lynch problem that I want to talk about as at the end of this, which is the connection between violence and sexuality against women. It's something that makes like Blue Velvet.
I was going to say that when I first saw Blue Velvet, there is that one moment when you see Isabella Rossellini when there's with Kyle MacLachlan with Laura Dern, and they're in the car, and all of a sudden Isabella Rossellini appears, and she's completely nude, and it's just like it's very startling, disturbing, and I couldn't help but think, why are you making your actress go through this really, really awkward? It really didn't. She didn't have to be nude. It didn't add anything to the scene, really.
Well, and the moment where he, at her urging, he hits her like Frank does.
Yeah, that was.
And although, I mean, you see him. Later, there's a scene where Jeffrey, Kyle MacLachlan sitting in bed. We're thinking back to it, and he's crying.
Yeah.
Over what he did, but remember, Frank says to him when they're out in the desert, "You're like me." So maybe there is, he said, there's that great moment where he turns to Laura Dern in the car and says, "Why are there people in the world like Frank?" Right?
I know.
And yet,
and it's so flat and everything. It's like this really corny dialogue, but then there's this swelling music.
And yet, Naomi Watts and Patricia Arquette from Lost Highway and Laura Dern, who worked with him over and over and over, never had anything bad to say about him. So I don't know, but I could understand if you were a younger film goer, like my students in their 20s, sort of raised on New Wave feminism and feminist criticism, to look at Blue Velvet and say, what the hell?
Well, look at any of the films.
Well, when it came out, and I remember Roger Ebert hated the movie. He went on and on and on about how horrible it was the way he treated Isabella Rossellini and made her go through all this stuff, and just really chastised the movie on a so-called moral point.
Not as much as Rex Reed. I remember when you and I saw Blue Velvet, the night we saw it. I think we saw it the first night. I'm pretty sure it was a Friday night.
I don't remember.
Would have been around October.
But I do remember there were people also who were very much into movies who did not like it. But those were mostly people who were more attracted to mainstream conventional movies.
Yes.
Right, the Back to the Future kind of stuff that I had to grow up on, and until Lynch single-handedly, maybe along with Jim Jarmusch.
I remember Woody Allen loved the movie.
Woody Allen and Martin Scorsese said it was the best movie of 1986.
Yeah, Platoon did win. And if you remember back to our 80s Oscars, we did say that the one year they might have gotten it right was Platoon.
I didn't
was
think
86.
So.
But
anyway, Lynch only got nominated for director that year.
No, but Lynch, to me, there are a couple of things that make Lynch unique. First of all, he's an artist.
Absolutely.
And almost everyone that we've studied, our heroes are the directors, and they are all film directors who evolved into artists, like, say, Scorsese. That's a typical path. The only one I know of who went the other way, an artist who happened to choose film as one of his main media, not the only one, is Lynch.
Yes.
Lynch could have been a painter, a sculptor, a composer, a musician. He could do and did do anything. And so when financing and stuff dried up after Inland Empire, he didn't seem to affect him at all. He's like, okay,
I'll do something else. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do something else.
Yeah.
I'll keep making my art, and I'll express myself, whatever. And if
Also-
something comes along that I'm interested in filming, I'll film it if
Well,
I can get
I
the
Also,
money.
his sense of humor. And
Dry.
I can talk to this personally, is very art school oriented. That very off-center, wacky kind of dry humor. It's just very typical of a lot of art students.
And there's so many funny lines. I mean, who's the lady with the log?
Yeah,
We call
but-
her the log lady.
but at the same time, there's so many people who watch those things, they don't get it.
No, I know, because it's too dead. I looked for you in the closet tonight. Those kind of...
That's one of the best lines in all of Lynch's movies.
Yes, but what I greatly admire about Lynch is, with one exception, he never allowed himself to go Hollywood. And the only time he did that was Dune, which he admits was a disaster and wouldn't have anything to do with it. In fact, he was offered money to, I forget, a production company. They made a 4-hour TV movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he not only would he not have anything to do with it, but he had his name taken off.
Yeah, no,
and
I-
also
he
the,
did an
the
Alan
editing,
Smithy,
The editing of Dune was taken away from him. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it was
It
just
was-
And he did Dune to make Blue Velvet, and good on De
De
Laurentiis,
Laurentiis.
not one of my heroes, but
Yeah.
Dune lost a ton of money, but he was as good as his word and gave Lynch the pittance he needed to make Blue Velvet, relatively
Right.
speaking.
Yeah.
So
It's so interesting when you read about how he got the germ of the idea. He said, "Oh well, I heard the song," and basically you went from there.
I mean, just where the inspiration comes from, and did you guys see Eraserhead in its midnight movie
Yes.
incarnation?
No, I saw it later at the Cinema Village, but it was at midnight.
What did you think of it the first time you
I
saw it?
didn't understand a thing that was going on.
I don't know if,
Eraserhead?
if understanding was the idea.
I love the imagery,
Yeah,
I think that was
the
it.
black and white imagery. I thought, wow. And I watched it last night again, only for the second time. Believe it or not, it was on Turner Classic Movies at 4 a.m.
really.
Yeah.
Wow.
What it was, I DVR'd it. It wasn't on.
Yeah.
I stayed up for Duck Soup last night, by
Oh,
the way. I mean,
me too.
Hail Fredonia.
Yeah. No, I like Eraserhead a lot, and with you, I mean, the imagery is so striking, and some of the images that he creates that are, the subtext is very strong. He definitely infuses a lot of symbolism into some of the images, and also, again, that off-the-wall humor that not everybody gets,
Well-
but there are occasional moments, I think he lets scenes or moments go on a little too long.
Yes.
Like the thing with
everyone
cutting
walking
up the
slowly
chicken,
through a room.
like the thing with the cutting up the chicken.
I
It's
know,
just-
I
it goes
love
on
that.
for too long.
It was shocking and hilarious and wonderful. And
Is
how
that-
did he do the baby?
Yeah, now
There
is that
have always been rumors that it was a skinned rabbit.
because
But
I know
how
that
did he move it?
But he didn't. They would never talk about how he did it.
well now Spielberg, I guess, ripped him off for E.T. because I thought, oh, that's the same actor as in E.T. That was my first thought when I watched it last night, and then I go, wait a minute, E.T. was after Eraserhead.
Yes, it was. Well, I mean, and I just Lynch. If I had to make a musical comparison, it's to the Velvet Underground. Like, the Velvet Underground didn't sell a lot of albums, but everyone, as I think it was Brian Eno said, or so Bowie, everyone who bought a Velvet Underground album started a band. And so I thought of that when I was watching Lost Highway, and Lost Highway begins with them receiving videotapes of the outside of the front of their house. Bill Pullman and Patricia Arquette. And I was like, holy crap, that's exactly how Haneke begins Caché. Remember, Caché begins with that very Hitchcocky, and they keep getting videotapes.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
So people borrow from him all, and half of what's streaming today seems like kind of watered down Twin Peaks.
Have either one of you watched? I saw the TV Glow. Yeah?
Yes, wonderful.
Yeah, but very heavily.
Very Lynchian.
Very Lynchian.
But he is, John, you're absolutely right. I put him in a category of surrealism along with like Dali. And what made me think of Dali was the scene in Blue Velvet where he finds the ear and the ants are crawling over it. Ants crawling all over his severed ear. I mean, that's pure Dali.
That's an image right out of Dali.
Right, and Chirico and Magritte, and just that juxtaposition. That's what Lynch does. Put things together.
Well, that's what surrealism is to put two realist images and put them out of context together to try to make a different statement.
Right, because that happens in dreams,
Right. Most of our dreams really don't add up if you try to attach like a through line, a conventional story. They don't make any sense.
And yet there is somehow sort of there is an internal logic to it, so it does kind of work. But, Lynch is an honest-to-goodness surrealist. Yeah. And in terms of his humor as well.
And what other American director can we call a surrealist?
Maybe Keaton. Keaton had moments where he got kind of surreal, and you're just like, whoa, did that just happen? But, barely. But I also love the fact in watching The Straight Story again. Mm-hmm. I just went to a gallery show down with... We're friends with Mark Rothko's son, Chris. He's a lovely, lovely guy. And they invited us to see an exhibit of his and Adolf Gottlieb's early figurative stuff. And, Rothko could paint ponies. And for every person who walks into, MoMA and sees the rectangles and said, that's crap, my kid could do that.
I know.
And I love Straight Story because that's like Lynch's figurative film. It's A to B, nothing surreal, although it is kind of a road trip, which reoccurs in Lynch all the time. Yeah. And
you could kind of call Mulholland Drive a road trip, only it's on foot.
And the irony is that Lost Highway, until the very end, is not really a road trip, although it takes place mostly in L.A., and he does love L.A.
He does, yeah. He said he loves L.A.
Lost Highway, though, is actually one of my least favorite Lynches.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah.
Well, a lot of what works against Lost Highway for me was the cast. I loved Patricia Arquette as both characters, but what's Richard Pryor doing in there, and Gary Busey, and
don't forget our favorite Robert Blake.
I kind of like Robert Blake with the Kabuki Mystery Man kind of thing. I did like that. But Bill Pullman is not a Lynch actor. Definitely I know they were friends, they were neighbors. And part of what holds me back a little bit from Wild at Heart is that I don't see Nicolas Cage as a Lynch actor.
I have my biggest problem with Wild at Heart, and I was so disappointed when I saw it because that was 3 years after Blue Velvet. I think the acting in that movie is really dreadful, including Diane Ladd, who I love, who somehow got an Oscar nomination.
Yeah,
it's so over the top.
Best use of lipstick in a film, though.
You see everybody pushing.
Really pushy. Yeah. And I love Laura Dern.
Which is unusual in a Lynch movie because he usually keeps people a little bit, back, holds them back a little bit, lets them be subtle or deadpan or whatever, creating the moment that works well. But I have to say, Naomi Watts is absolutely great in Mulholland Drive.
Yes, she is.
Luminous.
She is absolutely no. Hey, I even like Dan Miller.
Yes, I know, and
he loved her. Said that she was kept referred to as this great lady. Call me Coco.
Call me Coco. And
everybody does.
And bringing back Dennis Hopper when he was absolutely which was a stroke of genius, and Dean Stockwell too.
Yeah, I love Dean Stockwell.
Oh yeah. I like Dennis Hopper. It's one of the few Dennis Hopper performances.
That's probably might be his best performance.
Because I think it's closest to him.
That and the Nike commercials.
Okay,
I have a question. It has nothing to do whether or not the movie is good. The first time you saw Blue Velvet, were you really fooled by the well-dressed man?
No, but I think that was deliberate. It was it was not meant to.
No, it's just so obvious. I always kept wondering, people actually think it was somebody else.
But it's not. It's not really. It's kind of is a mystery film, but not. That's sort of secondary to. But the reason I like Blue Velvet is that even more so than Mulholland is that he sticks with the plot all the way through.
Yeah, he does veer off a little bit.
You can kind of say that in a way that Blue Velvet is about movies.
Yes. I think all of his films are about movie. I mean, my goodness, if you had $1 for every Wizard of Oz reference in Wild at Heart,
Yeah.
I mean, very, very deliberately so.
Heavy-handed.
Yeah, a little overdone. But, and the actress whose life is going to change by getting this part, that's Naomi Watts in Mulholland, that's Laura Dern in Inland Empire, too.
Mulholland Drive is the constant, like, what my dream is and what my reality is. It's always butting heads, and it's constantly being, interconnected.
Well, another thing I was going to say that I loved about, there's that story that Kyle MacLachlan tells about how Lynch's mom refused to ever get him coloring books when he was a kid, even though he was clearly artistic, because she didn't want him to have lines, to have to draw within. I mean, it's too on the nose of a metaphor, but I believe it. I mean, that absolutely works for me, that he is...
What did his mother... Was his mother an artist of some sort? Or
I don't know, but what I do know about his background is that it was as normal. Grew up in Missoula.
The father worked for the Department of Agriculture,
Yep.
which made them have to move fairly often. But
he was an usher at John F. Kennedy's.
Because he was an Eagle Scout. I mean, an Eagle Scout. I mean, the guy who made Blue Velvet is an Eagle Scout. I can't get over that. And of course, that love of small town America comes through, even though there's a dark I mean, the opening 5 minutes of Blue Velvet is Lynch in a nutshell. I mean, the fireman waving hello, and the kids crossing the street, and then the dad has a stroke, and then the camera goes under the beautifully manicured lawn, and you see the ugliness underneath, and then logs, Lumberton.
The sound of the falling trees.
Right, the time will be, and which is just like Twin Peaks, which is and then sort of contrast that with the urban with the Hollywood settings in Lost Highway and Mulholland and Inland Empire, and London in Elephant Man, as you say, and of course. Eraserhead, that constant industrial noise, which he said was about his life in Philadelphia when he was a poor art student and they had to live in this horrible neighborhood for 5 years.
Yeah, his mother was an English language tutor.
There you go.
Apparently the family came from Scandinavia.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And so to me, it actually, when I heard that, I'd forgotten that Lucas offered Lynch the chance to direct Return of the Jedi.
Yep.
And, fortunately he turned that down because it would have turned out like Dune. But, that sort of Jedi-Sith duality comes across all the time in Lynch. That good, evil, but it's a little more
What I read
complicated.
was the reason he turned it down because he thought it would be much more of Lucas's vision than his own.
Yeah.
Which is true.
Which makes
true.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's the thing I admire the most, that he did not, do anything just for a buck, and...
no, never did. It was always about his...
No Marvel movies.
Yay. And so we have to...
Well, not only that, but he's someone who was happy with small interests, a simple life. He didn't need a lot of money to be happy.
Yeah.
It's just that he happened to be able to become a successful director and... of course had some money, but it wasn't like he was overreaching. I can make some more money to do this, and because it becomes a sickness after a while.
No, and I think he sees that, and I think you also have to you can't just give him credit alone. It's the actors that we were talking about, but it's also his collaborators. I mean, it's Alan Splett doing the sound,
the music,
and
oh my God.
I mean, Lynch Badalamenti is as good a director. Composer combination
and industrial sounds
and that's Alan Splett doing the sound, and Lynch himself doing that, and Joanna Ray doing the casting, and Mary Sweeney doing the editing. I mean, he worked with the same people all the time.
It's like
people
a family.
that he exactly, and they sort of understood his vision and helped him achieve it, which is kind of miraculous. And as I said, all those unsung heroes along the way, like Mel Brooks. One of his assistants loved Eraserhead, sat Mel Brooks down, showed it to Mel Brooks, and Mel Brooks said, "That's the guy I want for Elephant Man." So good on him. And as you say, Mike, taking his name off it.
I had no idea until after I saw it.
I mean,
the only connection I had was Anne Bancroft. in the
Right.
movie.
Well,
but
yeah.
Anne Bancroft did a lot of movies that had nothing to do with Brooks. And
Yeah.
then I found out, I go, really?
Yeah, I know.
But he could, and if he had put his name on, he was
A,
right.
a different audience would have been
Would come.
attracted to the movie
Exactly.
and would have hated it.
And yeah,
Oh my God, yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
So he was. It was a smart move. But yeah,
no, and as I said, whoever were the executives, I know they canceled it in the second season, but whoever the executives were who said, yeah, we need a spring replacement, let's give Lynch and Mark Frost the chance to do Twin Peaks. I mean, insane.
I really wonder what they thought of it once it started.
It's just hard to.
it wasn't costing him that much money. Probably, I don't know. It's just
No.
Of course, in those days, network TV was a lot better. That was the same era as Northern Exposure, which
That's right.
was a
Yeah.
Network TV, yes.
network TV show that I liked very much.
Yep, now it's all Chicago Fire, Chicago Sanitation, Chicago Bug Inspector.
NCIS, FBI.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
No, well, fortunately, there's still some good stuff on streaming. I'm thrilled that Poker Face is back on Peacock.
I've just got Peacock.
Love
and
Natasha Lyonne. She
I'm going to be
rules.
watching it because
It's amazing.
it's been compared to Columbo.
It's exactly like Columbo,
And,
and she's got the same voice as Peter Falk does.
And I understand that they have a lot of guest stars.
Yes.
Like Columbo.
Yeah, I just saw the second episode of
Yeah,
the
that was
season.
part of the fun of Columbo.
Yeah.
Who's going to be the star
Who's going to
this
show
week?
up? Giancarlo Esposito is
Yeah.
is a main actor in this. So, and and for Twin Peaks, casting people like Richard Baymer and Russ Tamlin
I
and
know.
Piper Laurie
And using them the right way.
Oh,
too.
yeah.
That was the thing. Yeah, Peggy Lipton.
Peggy Lipton, for God's sake. Yeah, and wow. I just, those first 7 episodes are as good as anything I've ever seen on television, period.
Yeah,
I wouldn't disagree.
Yeah.
I agree.
And
I loved it.
game changing. And as you say, you can sit and watch some of even the good streaming stuff, and you're like, stolen from Lynch, stolen from Lynch, stolen from Lynch. I mean, anything that smacks of that kind of surrealism, but they don't have his intelligence, his artistic eye, and, as you guys have said, his sense of humor about it, too.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Lynchian themes. And I would say that maybe, with the exception of Tarantino, Lynch is the last director to be an adjective, right? Is there anyone you would what Lynchian filmmaking is?
Scorsese
One of the
is-
terms
But he
that
was before Lynch.
Oh, that's true.
One of the terms that was attached to it was populist. surrealism.
Yeah, which sounds almost like. But, the dreams are, if we're to believe Freud and Jung, the dreams are universal, and that's why sometimes you're watching Lynch and it hits you, and you're not really sure why.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, when he was at his best, usually what was at the core was the desire of a character to connect with another human being.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I can
Yeah.
I definitely see that. But I think even before that, so much of Lynch is about identity. Which is why, in an idea he totally
Person trying to find himself, kind of thing.
Yeah, which he totally borrowed from Buñuel, which is
Yes.
why in Lost Highway and Mulholland.
Well, it tended to be, I think, a little more subtle though, especially in the image.
Well, but Buñuel was a lot more political,
yes,
overtly
yes.
political.
Lynch was not
than-
political at all.
Right. I mean, Buñuel was looking to burn down the every establishment he could find.
Yes.
But Lynch is much more personal and intimate.
I wish you were alive today.
I mean, so.
Yeah.
So does the, like what happens with Carol Bouquet and the other actress in Obscure Object of Desire, where the same character is being played by 2 actresses. Did that bother you, or in Lost Highway, in Mulholland, or...
Mulholland, it didn't bother. Nothing in Mulholland bothered me.
The interesting thing about Mulholland is it was supposed to be a TV series.
Yeah.
and you can tell, occasionally there's a shot where you can tell it was designed for TV. But somehow he just, whatever they had shot or whatever, he just put it all together and made a movie.
But it works in Mulholland, and for me it doesn't work in Lost Highway, and I'm not sure why, where Bill Pullman just wakes up as Balthazar Getty, and then we follow that character, and then in the last 10 minutes, he kind of turns back into...
Yeah, it's like he's not as in control. Maybe it's the writing. I don't know.
Lost Highway should have been better. it should have, but I, in coming back to it, I was like, yeah, no, I didn't like it then, and I really don't like it that much now. But though, I mean, the ultimate expression of questions of identity is, and then in Mulholland and Inland Empire, he throws in the element of film too, the difference between reality and illusion that we see on screen. Which for Laura Dern's character in Inland breaks down completely at the last half hour, 45 minutes of the film.
Did you like Inland Empire?
No, liked it even less this time around.
Yeah,
Although there are people who like it. One of our listeners, Professor at Lehman College, loves that movie, and he's been trying to get me to watch it again. And I remember at the theater, just like,
I know it was boring.
Yeah, I just like
3 hours of like Lynch's greatest hits.
Yeah, it just, and I didn't understand, but maybe I didn't want to understand. I don't know. I may give it another try.
And there were times I didn't,
because like Blue Velvet and Mulholland Drive, from the very opening image, it's just so engaging. Immediately you're involved and you get sucked in. It kind of reminds me of Vertigo in that way. The way you just get sucked into that the reality that he creates.
Right, he builds worlds.
Yeah,
and whether it's 19th century London or late 20th century Iowa into Wisconsin and Straight Story. I mean, you really there's a lived-in feeling to Lynch that it doesn't feel even a place as surreal as Twin Peaks, or Lumberton. You kind of feel like this place exists.
Twin Peaks, it was almost like a coziness to us.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, what we think though of Twin Peaks Part 2, whatever they call it.
Oh, that was later showed on Showtime.
Yeah,
I didn't like it. I
didn't either.
I thought there was some interesting imagery, some ideas floating around there. It went on for too long, and just
I gave up after like the 5th episode.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
And it's interesting. I think in the movie, my surprise in rewatching Lynch was Fire Walk with Me, which I didn't like because where's Agent Cooper? Where are all our favorite characters? Why isn't Lara Flynn Boyle playing Donna? And the actress.
The reviews were so awful,
but they're wrong,
and that's why I didn't go.
I think they were kind of wrong.
I do too.
I really like the movie.
This is where.
No, I think it's a good movie. My God, is it disturbing though?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, I mean,
and not only that, it's. Whereas, like, such and such character, right? Well, it's a prequel. They haven't entered that world yet.
And I loved Chris Isaak as the first, the detective who arrives, who's doing the other investigation, before we get to Laura Palmer. And he's not an actor, but I thought he was...
He wasn't... I've seen him in other things that he's not bad at.
He did a lot of work for Demi, too. Yeah. I mean, I kind of
And I think Lara Flynn Boyle had some other obligation.
Yeah, and a lot of people didn't want to.
And I thought the actress, I forget her name,
Moira Kelly.
Yeah, I thought she was fine.
Yeah, she was good.
Okay.
She was good.
No. She wasn't LFB, but that's all right. I mean, but yeah, I think we wanted it to be Twin Peaks, and it wasn't. It was something other.
Yeah.
And especially now that we knew about Bob. But yeah, I mean, the scene where Bob forces himself upon Laura and she sees her father's face.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you do squirm.
Oh my God.
I mean, hitting Dorothy Valens is one thing. Incest is
nightmarish. But
totally believable. And I mean, remember in Wild at Heart, Lula is, she talks about her first sexual experience was she was basically raped by her father's friend, business partner, who they called Uncle whatever. Yeah. So, and we flash back to that twice in Wild at Heart. So this is what I'm talking about. When if I were a 25-year-old woman and you sat me down to watch Lynch, I would be like, what is your problem, man? This is
it wouldn't be a good first date.
Yes, no, okay. Good safety tip there, kids, from Michael, so listen to that one. Another theme that I noticed in going through is that there is often a man in the shadows sort of pulling the strings.
Yeah.
Right? So you have, in Eraserhead, you have the guy with the levers who we're not exactly sure what he is.
Yeah.
But, and you've got Mr. Eddie in Lost Highway, Robert Loggia's character, and Mr. Reindeer in Wild at Heart, and these sort of mystery, and the Spirit of Bob, too, these sort of mystery people who are in control.
Spirit of evil, really.
And Also, though, I love the odd stranger, the man from another place in Twin Peaks, played by the person of small stature, Michael Anderson, who shows up again in Mulholland.
Right.
All right, and
because you had that moment where he's on the phone, telling them to choose that actress.
And that's another one. The mob guys are really involved, running the movie thing, and there's just that. If I had to talk about one Lynch in it, it's that room with the zebra flooring and and the red curtain, and there's always blue somewhere, and Badalamenti's music.
Yeah.
She's my cousin, but doesn't she look like Laura Palmer? That just sort of talking backwards, but not. God, I just
occasionally there's images though too that he likes to stick in there, and I'm just like, what the hell does that mean? Does it mean anything, or just sort of winking at us? Like there's that moment in Fire Walk with Me where all of a sudden we see the white horse. I was like, what?
In the middle, right, and then it just fades away. It just disappears. Yeah. So okay, but it's sort of surrealist, I guess. But I love the mystery. I like Robert Blake's character in Lost Highway because he's terrifying and has very little to do.
No, not buying it. It's been so long. It's been so long since I've seen it, and I did not. Lost Highway, you said, is not streaming?
No, Lost Highway is.
Which is the one that's not streaming? I think
it's Wild at Heart's not streaming, and Elephant Man's not streaming. There is a film of the play with Kevin Conway from '82 that is streaming on Amazon. So don't be fooled, everybody.
Yeah, I saw the play, and the movie's better.
Yeah, I don't think I think the only one he based on a previous work was Wild at Heart. Barry Gifford wrote the novel Sailor Lula.
Wasn't the Straight Story based on something?
Might have been, yeah. But
of course, Dune was.
Yeah, well, we're not even talking about Dune. Dune important for two reasons. Gave him the money to make Blue Velvet and introduced him to Kyle MacLachlan, who became his alter ego essentially. And I just a perfect another perfect pairing of actor and director, I think.
Yeah. Especially in Twin Peaks.
Diane, I have to agree with John.
Whoever Diane was.
Exactly.
And I was in Twin Peaks.
Diane a lost love?
Of actors, I also like the contrast between him and Michael O'Teakin.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that really works.
And and Joan Chen is in it, I had forgotten.
I always loved, and in a lesser series or movie or with a lesser director, when Joan Chen, they have that scene that she's going to leave, and she leaves. And she never comes back.
Yep.
Anything else, they would have devised some sort of ridiculous premise where she comes back into the story.
She's giving a very, very good performance currently in the movie, the remake of The Wedding Banquet.
Oh yeah, I heard that.
Yes.
Yes.
Have to go see
it's
that.
Different.
I always liked Joan Chen.
Yeah, I did too.
I would love her.
Yeah, and she's really good in it.
So another visual element is the film noir. There's always Phyllis Dietrichson and there's Lola Dietrichson. There's the blonde and the brunette, and that's something he did. Even in Eraserhead, there's Mary, Mary X, his wife, and the brunette lady across the hallway, who he's attracted to. And so, of course, Dorothy and Sandy in Blue Velvet, Naomi Watts' and Lana Harding's character in Mulholland. So
but there's no real male character in Mulholland Drive that.
Isn't that? Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's really. I mean, they're the same character, of course, but.
And having Patricia Arquette play a blonde and a brunette character, very different in Lost Highway. Yeah. Which kind of works. So again, there's that duality thing happening that might have made him a good director for. Speaking of mystery people, how about the cowboy in Mulholland Drive? Frickin' love the cowboy. Oh my God! Oh my goodness!
Yeah. You're a smart aleck. That hat.
If you see me once more, that'll be good. If you see me twice more, that'll be bad.
I love Lee Grant's cameo in Mulholland Drive.
Yes.
Yeah. I didn't recognize you at first, but I thought that was a great character.
So, and another contrast that really hits you over the head when you watch these films back to back is his kind of obsession with the late 50s, early 60s.
No, it's the era he grew up in, really.
Right. Yeah. As sort of, I mean, I have
a nostalgia kind of thing.
I have a list. I mean, of the music. I mean, of course, there's, you know, the best moment being Dean Stockwell lip syncing.
Oh God. Yeah, that might be my favorite.
Candy Colored Clown,
moment,
John.
Yeah.
Candy Colored Clown.
Yeah, but that also just and Dennis Hopper's reaction, listening to him was like, "You are so suave,
suave man. You are so bleeping suave." that whole scene, that whole set piece.
Love that.
I think the only better set piece that he does is the Club Silencio in.
The Club Silencio. Oh my God.
No hay banda. Il me pas d'orchestra.
Yeah,
and yet,
I love that part.
There is music.
Yeah.
It's all on tape. God, that's such a good scene. And the blue cube, and
they're so disturbed by what's going on.
And you're not really sure why. But I mean, so I've got that, and then that's another Roy Orbison moment because Rebecca Del Rio is on stage singing, crying, in Spanish, llorando.
Yeah.
God, you know, even to the jazz that Bill Pullman's character plays in Lost Highway is like very 1959 Shape of Jazz to come, Ornette Coleman.
Yeah.
You know, in Mulholland you've got 16 Reasons that she's doing the recording of, which is Connie Stevens' song. There's in Inland Empire, there's Brubeck. It ends with Nina Simone's doing Sinnerman.
Yes,
right?
Remember that.
From 61. And
I love Nina
the
Simone.
mass dancing scene of both Locomotion and Etta James's At Last. So he's always coming back orally to that period and also visually. How many 50s style diners can one filmmaker put in his films?
Yeah.
I mean, there's...
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe
with
he's...
the hideous, scary homeless man in the back.
What's behind the dumpster at Winky's? We've got to know. Yeah, I mean, just a totally unique. And then Arlene's in Blue Velvet where they meet.
Well, it does, and in Twin Peaks too. That sort of jazzy music that creeps in every once in a while. You know, when they're just
that Badalamenti.
Created.
Yeah, and I like some of the original songs too. Like, you know, what's the one from Eraserhead? In Heaven Everything Is Fine.
Oh,
you know that the lady in the radiator.
The lady. Who would come up with that? The lady in the radiator.
God, that was gross.
And what is she stepping on? I mean, are those things supposed to be sperm or something?
Yeah, I know.
What is it? It feels like because he was a fairly new father at the time. It feels like just a terror of procreation. Eraserhead.
Fear of fatherhood? I don't know. Fear of responsibility. Fear of growing up.
And also, I know his daughter Jennifer, who became a director too, had some disabilities, like a clubfoot or something.
Oh, really?
So I hope the baby. We're not even. The hospital's not even sure if it's a baby. In Eraserhead is his disability thing. I don't know, but it was just so out and such a brilliant effect. And as you say, Mike, he refused ever to say how he did that.
Yeah, the rumor was that it was a skinned rabbit that he got some special effects person to animate, but he would never reveal what he did.
I'm convinced it's just an actor.
I have no idea. And God, in the scene where he kills him at the end, where Henry kills him at the end, is just brutal.
Oh yes.
Thank God that movie wasn't in color.
But you touch on something interesting because in almost all of the movies, there's a performance. Someone is on stage singing, usually with a red curtain and blue light, or with a blue curtain and red light. He loves that blue and red combination. Opens Blue Velvet with it, with the roses and the sky. And, Dorothy singing in Blue Velvet, Fred playing saxophone in Lost Highway, the Club Silencio scene, also red and blue. So lots of...
And in Twin Peaks, too, whenever you had those images, sequences that are sort of like where he looped things backwards.
Right,
and then and it's done in such a way so it's sort of on stage a performance the way it's done.
And yet, all of this hyper serious stuff done with this, I had forgotten. One of my new favorite Lynch I'd forgotten from Straight Story is when Richard Farnsworth's character is on the floor and the neighbor comes in and says, "What's the number for 911?"
A little sidebar. That was must have been a very, very difficult shoot, because he could not walk.
Right,
Richard Farnsworth. He had cancer. He was very ill. He didn't even really want to do the movie. I think Lynch talked him into it, and I forget exactly what kind of cancer he had, but a year after it came out, he shot himself.
Yeah, because it was
because of his illness, and he got an Oscar nomination before his.
That's right. Yeah, he's a wonderful actor.
He wasn't. He really wasn't. But he
really
become
wasn't an actor. I know.
Yeah, he got famous through the
Natural, right?
No, what was the Oscar-nominated movie? The one with Jane Fonda. And,
that
Jason
Alan
Robards,
Bacula,
James Caan.
yeah,
I can't think of the name.
I can't remember the
he
name.
was nominated.
It was pretty good. Jason Robards is in it.
Yeah, look it up, John. I can't think of the name.
Fact checker.
What do we pay you for it?
But he got an Oscar nomination for that, and I said, "Who is this guy?" And before that, he was just a stuntman.
So, just in summation, a stylist like no other. I mean, Lynch is one of those directors where you can be in another room and there's a television on in the other room, and you look in and you can see, even if you can't hear anything, you can tell, like with Wes Anderson, just the way he fills a frame, that it's a Lynch film, a completely unique vision, and that I love that duality of such darkness coming from someone who, by all accounts, was the sweetest, nicest, happiest guy in the world. Yes. It's just kind of incredible. So, a question then: what
comes a horseman?
Comes a horseman.
There
you go.
Yeah.
So, what do you say to the critics to say younger feminist critics of Lynch who just say that there is no, I don't want to say inexcusable, but there's no justification for the sexual abuse and occasional actual violence / incest that happens to women in his films?
Do they say that about Mulholland Drive?
I don't think so, because it's more the sex scene that everyone remembers in Mulholland is the two of them.
And the thing is too, one thing about Mulholland Drive, which I think actually helped him, because in between Blue Velvet and Mulholland Drive, I think part of the reason why Wild at Heart and Lost Highway fail is because he goes overboard. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have this hyper violence and then a little joke, and it's see, I'm just kidding kind of thing. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. And because it was originally supposed to be a TV series, he couldn't get away with any of that, and it restrained him. And I think it actually works to his advantage in Mulholland Drive.
Yeah, but
I can understand the criticism in Blue Velvet, but except for that one little moment, what would you change? It's what her character is about. It's not. I mean,
would a woman director have had Dorothy keep saying while they're having sex, "Hit me, hit me"?
Probably not.
I don't know. Then again, there are.
And there's also lines in Blue Velvet. There's where he says to his grandma, "Grandma, you say one more thing, I'm going to belt you."
Or you're going to get it.
You're going to get it.
You're going to get it.
Paraphrase.
I love you, Aunt, whatever, but...
Yeah, but if you're going to get it. He's not endorsing any of that kind of behavior.
Clearly. But...
And as you said before, the Kyle MacLachlan character is extremely disturbed and upset by it.
Well, Kubrick didn't endorse...
And there are people, both men and women, who get off on physical abuse.
I mean, Kubrick didn't endorse Clockwork Orange either. He was very upset when... but I do know when I showed it in college, there were women who walked out in the first 20 minutes.
Yep.
And complained to me as if I'd made it.
Yeah.
No, it's a tough... I mean, to me, the benefits far outweigh this, but it is something that I think, if I were teaching Lynch in a film class, I would definitely provide some context and set it up. I wouldn't not show it, but...
and also if the director was forcing the actress to do these things, then that's a whole other story. And with Blue Velvet, that wasn't the case. No. She wasn't being forced to do it.
Right. I mean, she dated him for 3 years after.
She speaks
very highly. Always spoke very highly of him. They stayed friends, and I mean, she had the choice to do the part of it. It was her decision to give herself over to that. She was playing a character.
Yep. And Laura Dern, kept working for him over and over again. And as I said, Naomi Watts and Patricia Arquette and everyone who played, and Sheryl Lee and all the women the young women in Twin Peaks, had nothing but great things to say about him as a person and as a director. So I think we're just going to leave that as an open-ended question because it's a very personal thing. I mean, everyone's got their own lines. I did find Blue Velvet a little bit harder to watch this time because of that, but
really,
I did too. I mean, I still like the movie a lot.
It's my favorite.
The thing about Blue Velvet though is that there is something about it. It's very involving, and I really enjoy watching it. The way he does things, but by the end of it, and it's over, I feel a little empty, like.
But the robins are singing. Life is good.
Like, what is it that you're trying to say?
I love that last image of the robin holding one of the bugs from the beginning.
Yeah, and he purposely wanted an animated bird.
I certainly don't feel that way about Mulholland Drive.
No, I don't.
So...
No, Mulholland Drive is, extremely sad.
So putting you guys on the spot, if you had to name a favorite Lynch, what would it be?
A favorite movie of his?
Yeah.
Mulholland Drive.
Same here.
All right, that would be probably my second.
But
Blue
if
Velvet.
I was to tell someone to watch a movie that's not familiar with David Lynch, I would probably pick Blue Velvet.
With a warning, with some content warning.
I might pick The Elephant Man, depending on how old the person is.
I think I would pick Eraserhead because it's so abstract.
That's true.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, I thought of that. Yeah.
And one of the things I love about his career, the arc of his career, is that his second most experimental film behind Eraserhead was Inland Empire, his last. So he begins with pure experimentation and circles and ends with pure experimentation.
An image I always think of from Eraserhead. I mean, there's so many just bizarre images, is that room with the plant by the bed that's
not in a pot.
Not in a pot.
No, and even Eraserhead though seems to have a happy ending where he's embraced in the sort of white light by the lady in the radiator.
Yeah.
So
happy ending?
Kind of ish, maybe. I don't know. And I love the ending of Straight Story, where you don't get this big, tearful, happy reunion. He shows up, the brother sees him. It's like, sit down.
Yeah.
And they sit down on the porch, and he leaves the rest to us. But yeah, if you ever...
Well, is there any moment in a Lynch movie that really moves you to tears? I don't...
No.
Maybe close to it in Mulholland Drive at the end, because when you're just thrown back into her reality.
Maybe I think he's just going for unsettling in that surreal, dreamlike way.
Yeah.
And there are lots and lots of moments in Lynch where I am unsettled.
Little piece of trivia: I think he is the only director to have, of his 10 films, 5 of them are all differently rated.
Is that right? Yeah.
The Straight Story G. The Elephant Man PG, Dune PG-13. R, Blue Velvet, Twin Peaks, Fire Walk with Me, Lost Highway, Mulholland Drive, and Island Empire. And then when it was first released, NC-17, Wild at Heart.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then Eraserhead has no rating.
Yes,
they're probably like, I don't know what to do with this.
And it's so,
I didn't submit it.
And it's so, because I will never forget, and I think I may have told this story once before in these pages, when the 3 of us were working at Bowker, and one year we got classifying books for Subject Guide to Books in Print, and then one year we got Variety's Guide to Films on Video.
We did it several years after you left.
Right, and then we spent an entire morning arguing about where Eraserhead would go. Is it sci-fi? Is it horror?
I think we argued about Blue Velvet, too.
Yeah, I'm sure, yes.
That wasn't the only movie we argued, but those two was like, huh?
But I
think we made Andrew put in a cult category.
Exactly. But, anyone who makes films that are that difficult to push into a particular, hole in the age of the algorithm today is that much more refreshing, and to me that's Lynch. And I see people trying to imitate Lynch and do Lynch, but his passing, that leaves a big hole.
And
in
I'm
the
still
house.
stunned that on the Academy show
I
there was
know.
so
There's no
little
mention of him at all.
Well, there was. There
I-
wasn't in the film,
Yeah,
but
it
just,
just-
like yeah.
Yeah, like so what? Like a footnote kind of.
But due respect to Quincy Jones, who was a genius, but who's more important to film, Quincy Jones or David Lynch?
David Lynch.
So obviously mentioned you could do a tribute to Quincy Jones and
I remember.
Gene
I
Hackman
remember
and-
when they did like a 10-minute tribute years ago to John Hughes.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, and I thought,
remember
really?
that.
Yeah, but phenomenally influential on
Was
the
he?
generations after us.
I guess.
Everyone after us has seen, 16 Candles
So
and Pretty
have
in
I.
Pink and Breakfast Club.
Now,
and-
one thing I will say about Mulholland Drive: how many people do you know when it first came out liked it?
I did.
I did.
I
but-
know you did,
but
and I loved it, but I knew very few people who liked it.
And you remember this. We saw it together, I think
Yeah.
on a Saturday night,
Yeah.
and I thought, I have to see this again. I went to see it the following night by myself.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. And, as a coda, how perfect is it that the last time we ever see him on film as John Ford?
Oh yeah.
Oh, and he was wonderful at
Yeah.
that.
Just
Yes.
and perfect. And you think, but Lynch is such a radical filmmaker, but yet he is also, as we've said it, in this episode, constantly paying tribute to old Hollywood.
And that was Mark Harris's idea
brilliant.
to cast
Just
him.
perfect.
Yeah.
And I did a double take. I was like, wait, that's David Lynch.
No, really,
Wow.
it really was perfect.
Yeah, and what a better. I can't think of a better way to say goodbye. And my last thought of his is a story I mentioned to you guys last time. I saw him when he was talking about, he did a stage show at BAM on his artwork and his attachment to transcendental meditation, and he said that someone once asked him what life is like, and he said life is like you're sitting in a room doing a jigsaw puzzle, and the pieces are in the other room and they come in one piece at a time.
Yeah.
And that's David Lynch.
Yeah.
And he leaves a big hole in our film going lives, but an incredible legacy. So I will miss him very much, and I will always thank him for Blue Velvet and Twin Peaks and everything else. So
I just want to say
go,
that
John,
the
go.
weather reports that he did are all on YouTube.
Oh, wonderful.
He apparently he had this thing, David Lynch Theater Presents Weather Report. It was in,
Perfect.
Yeah, and it was originally on KCRW, which I think is a Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's
station.
the NPR.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, and he and not a hint of irony, not look how
But-
quotidian I'm being. It's just like weather's really exciting. I want to share this.
Yeah, and it comes from his upbringing too, because
His dad.
there's a quote from him. Yeah, when his father would drive him into the forest, he recalled that his father would drive me through the woods in his green Forest Service truck, over dirt roads through the most beautiful forest where the trees are very tall and shafts of sunlight come down, and in the mountain streams the rainbow trout leap out and their little trout sides catch glimpses of light. Then my father would drop me in the woods and go off. It was a weird, comforting feeling being in the woods. He loved it.
There it is, and
Yeah.
and
And he would just wander around by himself.
he could easily have gone, the totally intellectual route, the art student route, the surrealist route, and he did, but that's him. That's who
Yeah.
he is, and as a child, and ended his days as the weatherman on NPR in LA. Perfect,
Yeah.
just perfect. A life very well lived, and
Yes.
we're glad he was here. So, speaking of lives very well lived, how's that for a segue? We turn to Magic Mike Edmund and his necrology for the last 2 months. We haven't had in a couple of
but
months.
surprisingly not a lot of major deaths in the last 2 months. Excuse me. Clive Revell, 94, New Zealand stage and screen actor. A member of Britain's Royal Shakespeare Company, he received 2 Tony nominations on Broadway for Irma la Douce and Oliver, originating the role of Fagin.
Oh.
Among his films, mostly in the 60s and 70s, were Kaleidoscope, Modesty Blaze.
That keeps coming up.
I know. Joseph Losey. The Assassination Bureau, Bunny Lake is Missing.
There you go.
And his American film debut, A Fine Madness. His two best-known films were for Billy Wilder, The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes.
Love that movie.
And Avanti, for which he won a Golden Globe nomination for Best Supporting Actor as a put-upon hotel manager. But his best-known role was the voice of Darth Sidious in the original version of The Empire Strikes Back.
Oh.
He was also seen on many episodic television programs and did voices for numerous animated films and television programs. Have either one of you seen Avanti?
Long time ago.
Yeah, it's
long time. Like in college.
I
a long
remember
time ago.
liking that movie, and Film Forum is doing a 2-week retrospective of Jack Lemmon because it's his 100th, it's his centennial year,
yeah.
and they're going to have that next
and
Sunday, and I'm going to go.
I saw they're showing Forbidden Games, which I've never seen.
I saw
on
it
a big
last
screen,
night.
and
It's wonderful.
oh my god, I love that movie.
Oh my god, it's good.
But I've never seen it on a big screen.
Oh,
so
go
I'm going.
and go this week because there were only like maybe 25 people in the
I'm
house,
going.
and
I'm
there were
going.
I don't think it's going to extend, is what I'm saying. Okay, Richard Chamberlain, 90, television, film, and stage actor. He became known in the 60s for the TV series Dr. Kildare, which ran 5 years. During that period, he also appeared in theatrical films, A Thunder of Drums, Twilight of Honor, and Joy in the Morning. When the series ended in 1966, he starred on Broadway opposite Mary Tyler Moore in the notorious musical flop, Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Ooh.
And it was a bomb. It didn't even open. It was so bad. He went to London to appear in repertory theater and became the first American actor since John Barrymore to appear in the West End as Hamlet, a role he repeated on the Hallmark Hall of Fame.
I remember that.
Yeah, we were assigned to watch that. Anyway, he continued to appear in films, some supporting roles such as Betulia, The Mad Woman of Chaillot, and The Towering Inferno, and leading roles in Ken Russell's The Music Lovers as Tchaikovsky,
Right.
Lady Caroline Lamb as Lord Byron, and The Three Musketeers and The Four Musketeers as Aramis. One of his best-known films in the 70s was in Peter Weir's The Last Wave.
Wonderful.
But television is where he did his best-known work. He became known as the king of the miniseries, with his performances in Centennial, Shogun, The Bourne Identity, and The Thornbirds. He continued working in small roles in films and television programs, including a cameo in Twin Peaks: The Return in 2017.
Interesting.
Yeah, I actually wasn't a big fan of his. I
Sometimes
remember
I thought
that
it was
Hamlet thinking, what did I do to deserve this?
Sometimes he was
guy.
good, and
Yeah.
I remember enjoying the Shogun series.
I never saw them.
Yeah, Thornbirds. Everybody was watching.
Yeah,
it was
that's
the
right.
priest that has the affair.
Val Kilmer, 65, film and stage actor, Juilliard trained. At 17, he was one of the youngest students ever to be admitted into Juilliard. He made his film debut in the satire Top Secret in 1984 and worked regularly for the next 30 years. Other films early in his career included Real Genius, Top Gun,
Yep.
Tombstone as Doc Holliday, Batman Forever in the title role, Heat, Pollock as William de Kooning, True Romance, and most famously as Jim Morrison in Oliver Stone's The Doors.
For which he did his own singing. I
Yes,
heard.
he was
Yeah.
excellent in that. However, he gained a reputation of being difficult with directors and other actors. Most famously in the 1996 film The Island of Dr. Moreau.
Ooh.
He refused to learn his lines, came consistently late to the set, and fought with director John Frankenheimer and co-star Marlon Brando. Frankenheimer was known as saying, quote, "I don't like Val Kilmer, I don't like his work ethic, and I don't want to be associated with him again," unquote. Kilmer received a Razzie nomination as Worst Supporting Actor for that film. After that movie, he played mostly supporting roles and independent films. He was also slowed down by an occurrence of throat cancer.
Right.
He did perform around the country in a one-man play that he wrote, Citizen Twain, and which I actually saw when I was in Los Angeles. It never came to New York, but he was pretty good.
I always liked Val Kilmer.
In 2021, he was the subject of the documentary Val, which was based on decades of footage and produced by his children. His final film appearance was a cameo in Top Gun Maverick 2022.
Yeah, and I love Top Secret. Top Secret is lost in the shuffle because it's the Abraham Zucker film that comes between Airplane and The Police Squad, Naked Gun films. But Top Secret is all over the place, but when it hits, it's hilarious. It's not Airplane, but it's really good.
I thought it was good.
Yep.
And he did.
It was fun.
Yeah. Ted Kotcheff, 94, Canadian director and film producer. After having worked as a producer in Canada, he made his directorial debut in 1971 with Wake in Fright, which Canada submitted to the Cannes Film Festival. But he struck it big with The Apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz, based on the Mordecai Ricker novel, whom he shared an apartment with in London some 15 years earlier. Piece of trivia. In the U.S., he made Fun with Dick and Jane, the original with Jane Fonda and George Segal, Who Are Killing the Great Chefs of Europe, North Dallas 40, Uncommon Valor, and Switching Channels. His two most famous films were First Blood and Weekend at Bernie's. Later, he became the executive producer of Law & Order Special Victims Unit for 13 years. And apparently, with First Blood, he was offered millions and millions to do the sequel, and he absolutely refused. Because, and I never saw any of them, but he said the First Blood movie, no one gets killed, and in the second one he kills everybody. And he just
all Vietnamese people.
And he just wasn't having any of it. So
good for him.
Yeah, really. Jean Marsh, 90, film and stage actress and television writer and actress. She started working on TV and film in the 1950s and the early 1960s in The Roman Spring of Mrs. Stone, Cleopatra, Charlie Bubbles, Jane Eyre, A Day in the Death of Joe Egg, The Eagle Has Landed, Return to Oz, Willow, and most notably in Alfred Hitchcock's Frenzy, where she played Monica Barley, the observant secretary at the Blaney Matrimonial Agency. She also appeared on television, most famously on the first season of The Twilight Zone, where she played a brunette robot created as a companion for a prisoner played by Jack Warden on an asteroid. But what she is best known for is the BBC TV series Upstairs, Downstairs, which she starred as Rose the Maid and created the series with fellow actress Eileen Atkins. They came up with the idea when they were house-sitting for a wealthy friend in the south of France. And so they wrote the series, contrasting the lives of a wealthy Edwardian family and their servants. Jean Marsh also won an Emmy in 1975 for Best Actress for her role. And I actually got to talk to her once.
And?
Well, it was a kind of weird situation. We were both waiting for tickets at the old Phoenix Theater on East 71st Street. And she was ahead of me, and the box office hadn't opened yet. And I just started talking with her, telling her how much I loved Upstairs, Downstairs. And then I asked her, I said, I loved you in Frenzy, too. Did you enjoy working on that? And she said no.
Yeah. Did anybody?
She did not. And her pleasant demeanor suddenly became a frown.
You told that like a similar story about Louise Latham and Marnie,
yes,
too.
Yes.
Yeah, working with Hitchcock late in his career, maybe not the best thing.
But that was yeah. Okay, James Foley, 71, film and TV director. He made his film debut in 1984 with the romantic drama Reckless with Aidan Quinn and Dara Hannah. His next film was At Close Range with Sean Penn. He also directed the video Live to Tell with Penn's then-wife Madonna and directed Papa Don't Preach and Live to Tell, the videos.
Love Papa Don't. She's a Staten Island girl in Papa Don't Preach.
He then directed Madonna in Who's That Girl and filmed the video.
Oof.
His next best hit after directing an episode of the original Twin Peaks was the film version of David Mamet's Glengarry Glen Ross with Al Pacino and Jack Lemmon.
Always be podcasting.
Other films were After Dark, My Sweet, My Chamber, Perfect Stranger, and Red Zone. His biggest financial hits were the sequels to 50 Shades of Grey, 50 Shades Darker, and 50 Shades Freed, which grossed a combined $714 million. I didn't know there were sequels to that movie.
They were very well hidden.
I saw the first one and hated it.
Yep.
And that was enough. He also directed episodes of Billions, Hannibal, and a dozen episodes of House of Cards.
Oh, okay.
And
all good
how
series.
he became known was kind of an interesting story. He was at a party at NYU, and they were showing movies. And in walks Hal Ashby, who was actually following a co-ed.
Of course.
into that party, and they were showing movies, and he saw the movie. He says, "Who did this?" And he raised his hand. He says, "You're going to become part of my production company," because he had just started his company where he was making movies, but that folded. He made 2 movies. They were both bombs. Yeah. But then he became known, and then given the opportunity to direct Reckless when he was like 29.
Wow. So, I mean, and I generally don't love filmed plays, but Glengarry is just
off the charts. It's also superior, I think
so too.
To the play because of the addition of the Alec Baldwin character becomes clear. I take it you haven't seen the current revival.
No.
Either have I.
No.
Greg Cannon, and this I just found out this afternoon, so apologies if this goes really fast. Prosthetics and makeup specialist. Won 4 Oscars for Bram Stoker's Dracula, Mrs. Doubtfire, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and Vice. He was also nominated for Hook, Hoffa, Roommates, Titanic, Bicentennial Man, and A Beautiful Mind. Was a specialist in making actors age on screen. He was originally an assistant to Rick Baker.
Oh, who did American Werewolf in London, who was sort of the inventor of all of that stuff. All right, so a mercifully short list, considering it's been 2 months.
Going back to Val Kilmer, did you ever see Kiss Kiss Bang Bang? With Robert Downey Jr.?
Yes.
Yeah, that's really good.
That was good. And I hear
worth checking out.
And I hear in the beginning they hated each other. But then,
really?
Yeah. But then Robert Downey learned to like. It was a beginning.
Mm-hmm. And his Doc Holliday in Tombstone is just
he's really good.
Amazing, uncanny how good that is. So,
but unfortunately, I don't know what happened with him. He did become very difficult to work with.
Yeah, I mean, because of that one film, it was so. Did you ever see it?
Well, the fact that Brando was complaining about him.
Yeah, when
yeah, right. If Brando thinks you're out of control, something's wrong. And on that humorous note...
before I forget, a movie that I said was one of the 2 best movies of 2024 is now on Netflix, and that is The Room Next Door, Almodovar.
Oh, perfect. Okay,
it's now currently on Netflix.
That is on the list. All right, we move on to America's favorite segment of the podcast. That would be John's Quote Quiz. Take it away, John Meyer.
Okay, so the last quote was, "He who can destroy a thing has the real control of it." It's actually from 2 movies, Dune 1984 and Dune Part 2 2024. The first movie being with Kyle MacLachlan, that's who says this, and the second one from 2024 is Timothée Chalamet.
Was it Dune or Dune Part 2?
Dune Part 2.
Part 2.
Yeah, the one that just came out this past year. Yeah. So, anyway, the new quote is, "I don't want to survive, I want to live."
I was going to think it was something Lynchian, but it doesn't strike me as a Lynch. All right, so listen.
I hope it's not the Susan Hayward movie.
She won an Oscar for that, didn't she?
Yeah.
All right, come on.
That was one of the less deserved Oscars.
Yeah, that's true. And that's saying something. All right, so if you think you know the answer, or if you're sure you don't and want to find it out, please check out our website, the cleverly named www.vintagesand.com. Our next episode may be our big 2-parter. The century's already a quarter.
I can't believe it.
Gone, and so at some point this year, maybe June, July, it's time for us to do our favorite films of the century so far. And we'll do it as a double episode. We'll do 10 through 6 in the first one, and then 5 through 1 in the second one, as we have done in the past. So hang on for that one. I will take this opportunity to remind all involved that Vintage Sand is a 5 9s and a 4 production. Want to thank Melissa for her tech help, Mama Sue for the use of the hall, Theo for the ass-kicking logo. Please recall that we are on YouTube now, as well as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and SoundCloud. As I said, please check out the website and leave us your feedback and your suggestions for new episodes. And the other thing I gotta say, 2 other things I gotta say. First of all, if you're listening to this podcast and you haven't seen Sinners yet, and you need to hit pause and go to your nearest theater and go see Sinners.
Yes.
If Michael Edmund liked a movie with that much vampiric gore in the second half, then it's got to be worth your time. I thought it was extraordinary.
I loved it. I loved every shot. It was enthralling.
Yeah, I think Ryan Coogler, paying off on the promise that we saw in Fruitvale, and for me in Creed, and certainly in the first Black Panther film. And listen, things being the way they are, we'll say it again. Please, do whatever you can to support the arts in this time of crisis, and that's what it is. We've never needed support for the arts more than we have now, and the National Endowment for the Arts and Humanities are getting defunded and shut down, NPR, PBS, so do what you can politically, financially. Please help this.
Don't be afraid to speak out.
That's right, please. And, we hope in the end that, like Sailor's snakeskin jacket and Wild at Heart, that this podcast is a symbol of your individuality and your belief in personal freedom. So there you go.
At the sound of the falling tree.
At the sound of the exercise that right, as John says. So keep the faith, hang in there, and as ever, keep in mind our fervent hope that your favorite films may always be streaming.